This is an open letter to friends and family. Here's the thing about the stolen elections. Whether it was stolen, whether the one before it was stolen, whether the one after it is going to be stolen, it's just a matter of perspective. I don't think they actually uh, you can consider it as a metaphoric stolen as election in its metaphoric form. As far as the populists are concerned, since the 1950s, the middle class has been shrinking, and more of the middle class, which used to be the majority in North America, more of the middle class has been pushed down to lower class. And this has been continuous since the 1950s in North America. The middle class, because the middle class jobs went away, so the middle class went away, and everybody fell into lower class, and up to their eyeballs in debt, trying to keep up appearances. You see where I'm going with this? So the reality is, without credit cards, the middle class, there is no middle class. Without credit cards, there is no middle class. Without living in debt, there is no middle class. And, that's how it works in a monopoly. When, a few people own everything on the board, and everybody else is literally have to slave away, so they just pass through the squares on the monopoly. They just have to sort it away, because the gaps of income has increased so much. 1% and then the 99%, as the saying goes. The gap has become so wide, as if sort of like, why bother? And that's where this depression in the society comes from. In general, depression is that the guy who figures out, does with all, as much as he wasn't been educated to do the math, he still educates himself and eventually does the math and figures out that what he makes in his lifetime, another guy is making in a second. And then they both have to live in the same city. Salute. Once the this extra large lower class figures out that there is no way, the boss is not forced to only make 20 times his income, the boss can make 2,000 times his income, and no laws has been broken. You see where I'm going with this? So the idea is, they say stolen election. I have a feeling, a bunch of people, or whoever becomes uh, wins the election, a bunch of people are going to scream stolen. Why? Not because it was really stolen, or for sure stolen, maybe stolen. Nobody cares about that. The idea is, if the welfare of the society keeps going southward since the 1950s, that's 75 years, 74 years, worse education system, worse welfare system, worse, since the 1950s. Of course, 1950s, a lot of people didn't qualify to be assisted by the system. Anyway, but the majority were in middle class. At least the majority of white people were in middle class, even with factory jobs or minimum wage jobs. Still, you are in middle class. Then, as 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000, as it moves forward, there has been no improvement, no change. The system is still for the big guy against the little guy. For the big corporation against the employees, for the big corporation against the trade unions, for the big corporation against consumer, for the big corporation for mergers in terms of mergers and acquisitions. When the government is for the big corporation in terms of mergers and acquisition, then this is the result. This is the result. Why? It's like this. Imagine you go to a restaurant. Imagine the common man, the voter, goes to a restaurant and orders the chicken. The chicken comes in and the common man eats the chicken. And halfway through he realizes that it's not a very good food, not a good meat, at least in this restaurant. So he remembers the next time not to order the fucking chicken. Okay? Okay. The next time he comes in, imagine this is a restaurant that his boss likes, so he has to visit often. Maybe he meets his boss and, gets a brownie point. But the point is this, he has to go to this restaurant for some reason, and the next time comes around and he orders the beef. He remembers that no, don't order the chicken, order the beef. The beef comes and the common man starts eating it and realizes that it's the chicken. It didn't change. He ordered the beef, but they brought them the chicken again. And this is not one of those restaurants that you can send the food back. If they try to send the food back, they throw it in your face and kick you out. So he doesn't send the food back. He eats the fucking chicken. But he calls the waiter and complains that you gave me the fucking wrong meat. I ordered beef, not the chicken. So you see what I'm going with this. If you elect a certain group and you don't like the result of what happened, imagine that for 4 years you put up with the chicken. Then at the end of 4 years they say, okay, I'm gonna choose beef now. And then they bring you chicken, which means it's the same policies. It's the same horse, it's the same carriage, they just change the rider, but it's going the same way. So you realize that, well, it seems my elections are being stolen, because I think I'm electing beef, chicken comes. Then I elect pork, still I get the fucking chicken. This is, I think, the metaphorical concept that the people are, grasping to, that this is, they're all stolen, because we think we keep voting for our welfare to get better, but since the 1950s, our welfare has been going down, but we seem to be fighting a lot of wars in a lot of places, but our own welfare has been going down. What's going on? We elect beef. We elect pork. You see what I'm saying? And, Donald Trump, in my view, I might be wrong, was, the disruptor, the selection of let's put in the pork. Because when they have gone back and forth with the traditional picks of the parties between the Democrats and Republicans, they have gone back and they have gone chicken, beef, chicken, beef, chicken, beef, chicken, beef, and they have seen no result. Suddenly now they're, at the, it's the last stop. It's sort of like, nope, apparently you motherfuckers don't understand. We want the pork. And we want the guy who, improves our situation. It's sort of like, but then you think that, you know, most of the NPR talking heads, for example, are, rarely leave their comfortable life, you know, at this big large cities that they live in. And usually cities have some way of managing hunger or poverty by soup kitchens and try to concentrate them in a certain part of the city that, you know, good folks don't visit often. Skid Row, let's call it this row and that row and the other row. So our three-star reporters and talking heads don't, don't usually, it's not on their way. Let's put it this way. So usually you see that nobody sees the poverty, and the hopelessness because of this monopoly that a few people have won, and they should be given prizes, but all these big corporations have to be broken up to very small sizes in order to, if you want to keep capitalism. I've said this before, it's just the only solution. The other solution is just go to war, and not no longer metaphorically you break up your corporation, but literally, physically, both sides nuke each other and all the corporations are eliminated and everybody has to start from scratch. And with half the population on Earth and a lot of places very radioactive. To the Sane Society. The problem is people keep electing. They have been thinking that these two parties will put up different point of views, but they keep electing from jumping from one to the other with no results. The chicken keeps arriving at the table. So it comes around. When was it that Bernie Sanders had a chance? Bernie Sanders is a disruptive from the left. Disruptor from the, it's like you can say the pork from the left. That, when everybody is fed up with the chicken and the beef, they order the pork. The disruptor. Bernie Sanders was the disruptor on the left, which the Democrats didn't allow to pass. But the Republicans, it's free for all. They let their disruptor pass, but the Democrat didn't let their disruptor pass. And in reality, Bernie Sanders would have been a much better disruptor than Donald Trump would have ever been. I don't know the next one if there is a Donald Trump presidency, but if the first time around, it's a Trump. I think is playing as a disruptor. Just like WWF, WWE, whatever they call it nowadays. It's a play acting. Trump is the system. He's a rich guy from a rich system which keeps taking from the poor and giving it to the rich in terms of tax cuts. And that all it does is accumulates more wealth at the top. Because poor people really don't pay taxes. It's the rich people pay taxes because the rich people are taking a lot more out of the society in terms of services. A poor guy who rides around in a bicycle all day long is not costing the city so much in terms of asphalt and road upkeep. And you see what I'm saying? The poor guy who's driving around a bicycle is not costing so much in terms of the society around it, in terms of, you know, goods and services. But the guy who drives around in a Rolls Royce needs a restaurant and needs a valet and needs nice smooth roads and needs smooth curbs and yes, that's great. That's great. But you see, when the number of poor, when it becomes 99% and 1%, that's when monopoly is over. You stop the game, give a prize, then redistribute the money, redistribute the wealth between the people, and then start capitalism again. Restart capitalism. This is not the way. This is going to end in war, like it has before. Rich people don't understand that it's time to give everything back and start capitalism all over again. They don't understand it. They think with this philanthropy and even some of them are so out of it that they are not even okay with philanthropy. And they are no. You have to fuck the masses, turn them into robots because they're not working fast enough. They're not learning fast enough. They're not working fast enough. Let's plug some electricity up their ass and get them moving. Mr. Musk, Mr. Musk has some ideas. I'm watching King of the Borgs. I'm watching King of the Borgs being born. That's the thing. It's stolen because they feel it's stolen. If you ask them, they think every election is stolen because it doesn't matter whether they put a Democrat in or a Republican in. They get more concentration of wealth in hands of fewer people. More laws come out to protect them and make their wealth accumulation process easier, and little man getting screwed is not that important. It's not top of the agenda. You know, you would think it didn't need an Aaron Bronkovich to have to struggle to bring some kind of justice. You would think the actual representative of people would be on top of everything. So before private individuals have to struggle to, you know, seek justice against corporations, you don't see that. You don't see the legislature, the people in charge supposedly are taking care of business. So private individuals have to get involved. That's crazy. And that's crazy, and that's what the people think. It's a stolen election. If your condition, if you vote differently, but your condition stays the same, there is more money going in direction of foreign lands in terms of not for good. I mean, I don't think Americans would mind if Uncle Sam's managers were sending money to build a university in every little town and city. I don't think people would mind as much that when they find out the money that they haven't been receiving in terms of healthcare or general well-being, the money. When I say the money, that I mean the added productivity, the GDP, the added productivity that the system has worked and brought up as a profit, as sustenance, as something that would try to help keep society better. You have taken a big chunk of this added productivity that Uncle Sam's people have produced. You used it not to build universities in those shitholes, but to bomb those shitholes because to get them in line. In line with what? In line with Jesus? or Moses? In line with what? In line with capitalism? In line with freedom? Bong bong. Marcos. Freedom. Freedom to choose bong bong Marcos. Are you fucking kidding me? The added productivity that the people they have created. The people keep hearing from their own media and other media that you live in the richest country on earth. And the guy says his reality is very poor on minimum wage. His reality is very poor. But he keeps being told that you really live in the richest country in the world. But he hasn't been given the skills necessary, and there is no skill. I mean, when your minimum wage is 5, how much the guy has to learn so he can make $150 an hour? How much? And is it possible still with the guy making $150 an hour, is it possible for him to live in the same city that an average doctor makes $10,000 an hour? You see what I'm saying? An average surgeon makes $10,000 an hour of work, and minimum wage pays $10 an hour. These two are supposed to live in the same cities? Fucking kidding me? So the guy sees this and says, whoever is the politician that allows this gap in income to spread and becomes even more, becomes a canyon of income inequality. Well, I want that. I'm not going to order that politician again. I'm not going to vote for them. I'm not going to ask for the chicken. I want the beef. But then the beef comes and it's still chicken. Still, the workers get the shaft, and the owners get everything. More and more. Mergers and acquisitions. Through mergers and acquisitions. The result? No, I'm sorry. There is a point in Monopoly that you have to, if you want to continue playing, imagine you just started, one guy is really good at Monopoly and the other guys are a little, on the retarded side. Imagine such a case. This is the difference between the average folks and Elon Musk is the difference between an average guy and uh, you know, and a retarded guy. That's the difference. So imagine an average guy with a bunch of retarded people. They play Monopoly, and the average guy wins. There is a point in which the average guy has to say to the retarded people, "Okay, retarded people, I won. Here's my medal." You hang a medal off Jeff Bezos' neck, and you hang a medal off Elon Musk's neck, and you say, okay, you have won the game of capitalism, this game of the monopoly, here's your prize. Now we're going to redistribute this shit and start capitalism all over again. Or this machine is going to stop. That's the point that even the average guy playing with retarded people a game of Monopoly, that's the point that the average guy wins all the money. He gives himself a medal and he say, I won. Now I'm going to give all the money back so we can continue playing this fucking game. Now is that point that the smart people have to understand, unless they don't want to, they go that the way of Marie Antoinette. If they don't want to go her way, they should understand this is the point at which, if Marie Antoinette had actually, emptied the walls and given people something, and made sure that the citizens are, break up the big corporations and feed the people, or sell it to people so they can all start a small new corporation, small corporation. That's the only way. So, did they think the last election was stolen? I'm sure they did. Will they think the next election is stolen? If things don't change in terms of, which I don't think it will change with anything with Mr. Trump. I don't think it's because he was in office already once before. He 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 acts as a disruptor, just like he acted in a few WWE wrestling uh, games. He acted in a couple of movies. He like Home Alone or something. Yeah. So he likes the camera and he can pretend. No one can doubt that. So is he a disruptor or is he acting as a disruptor? If how can you be for poor people and redistribution of wealth in somehow in a capitalist fashion, of course, redistribution of wealth in the capitalist fashion. Don't shoot me as a communist. No, redistribution of wealth in a capitalist fashion. And that's when you take wealth and you sell it off. You break a big corporation and you sell it to a bunch of small individuals, small, you know, and you restrict it from now on. You say no individual can own more than 500 employees. Have fun. No corporation should be more than bigger than 500 employees. That's how you keep the competition going. Mergers and acquisition kills competition, and you have bloated asses like Boeing that it's so comfortable with its place at the top of the food chain in terms of at least both military and commercial aircraft. It so feels so on top of the food chain that can charge so much for their planes, the military and their products, the military, and they can charge so much for their planes that they sell to the private sector, and they keep falling off out of the sky. And that's when you see that you have a bloated monopoly. Somebody some time ago, a disruptor like Bernie Sanders, had to come in and say no more. We're going to break all these large corporations into tiny bit of pieces and sell those tiny pieces now to restart capitalism. Not as a communist, but to restart capitalism. Tiny pieces. He could have done that, he would have done that, but the Democrats didn't allow him through the door. So in that way, I think the Republicans are much more democratic than the Democrats are. The Republicans, at least, they let the disruptor in. The disruptor was an actor. He wasn't a real disruptor. He had no intention of disrupting because he is that 1%. How can the 1% be a disruptor against the 1%? You know, but Democrats didn't allow any of their disruptor through. Which one of these folks are disruptors? Kamala Harris, maybe, maybe not. It doesn't seem a fiery brand to me. And if you're not a fiery brand, you're not a disruptor. I mean, I could see, if you're not a fiery brand, if your brand is not fiery, you're not a disruptor, frankly. And Kamala Harris is not a fiery brand. She's of the system, by the system, for the system. Started in the system, climbed her way up in the system, let's say legitimately. But still, if you climb your way up the system, you're of the system, by the system, for the system. The system hasn't, the chicken hasn't worked out for the people. They keep changing, trying to reorder because they didn't like the chicken. They order something else, but still they get the chicken. And then they order something else, they still get some chicken again. So that's what they, how they feel their elections are being stolen, because they think they're voting for a change in policy. All they get is a change in people, not policy. Therefore, they feel the elections are stolen because they feel they're voting for a change in policy. So they feel they're voting for a change in policy, but all they get is a change in people. That's what democracy has brought you. This idea of democracy in terms of, let people choose. No, eventually people don't get to choose because the parties choose the candidates, and the people just, at the end of the day, they have to vote for either candidates that the parties have elected. I think, Mr. Kennedy is also a disruptor, but, the media keeps smearing him. They dig on his past, and they dig on his present, and they dig on his past, and they do everything and trying to disrupt him. Disrupt the disruptor. In fact, between Kamala Harris, which is of the system, by the system, for the system, and the Trump who's acting as a disruptor, I think John F. Kennedy is the real disruptor. With his missing piece of brain, he is probably, the worm has eaten the bad piece of the brain that makes all these rich people, you know, blind. So maybe the worm has eaten the correct part of the brain, and he, as a rich person, has learned, because, frankly, he's not doing this for the money or the fame. He has been defamed and demoneyed. So I think he's the real disruptor, the real guy in this game, the real disruptor, which people would need. A tough guy who's willing to do a dirty fight, and he doesn't need to be liked. Trump loves to be liked, and Trump doesn't meet me in Mar-a-Lago. He meets a bunch of billionaires and millionaires in Mar-a-Lago. In his daily life, here's how you can tell Trump is acting to be liked by the common man. But does he meet the common man? Not very often. Not 24 hours a day. He may meet a few common men for an hour or so a day. The guy who's attending his golf course, or the guy who's cleaning his kitchen. He may meet a few common men a day, but his true interaction, daily interaction, is with people who are maybe even richer than him. If you're really rich, you don't own a club. You don't want to be seen. You just attend other people's club. You don't want to own the club. You don't want to own the whorehouse. You want to visit the whorehouse. Anyway, the club owner is not really, top of the food chain. The club owner, the whole, country club owner, is not really at the top of the food chain. He wants to be at the top of the food chain, but he's not really at the top of the food chain because those people who are really at the top of the food chain wouldn't want to deal with owning in country clubs. Like they attend one or two or five, but they don't want to own one. Too much trouble. Just too much. You know, too much issues in the small circles of the very wealthy. So my point is this: between the three candidates of the system, by the system, for the system, the chicken and the beef, which is pretending to be beef, but it's actually the chicken, I think, which Mr. Trump is. It's not going to be the same thing. The little man, the little guy, is not going to get shit because you know we have two kind of, in my view, the veterans of the war. Let's say the war of the French in Indochina. There are two types of veterans of wars. One type is the veteran of the war who has not blocked everything and feels everything that he has done wherever that French soldier was fighting in Indochina. If he has if he has not blocked everything off and has felt something in the war, when he comes back home as a veteran, he's going to be homeless. He's going to be out of his mind. He's going to be, because of so much shit that he has observed during the time of war. So that French soldier, when he comes home, is not going, that one that has felt everything, has been present when he was doing it. But then so when he comes home, he's in trouble. He's going to be in trouble for a very long time and never really recover. But then there are those soldiers who go in and for some reason, these French soldiers in Indochina, they go in for some reason, and for some reason they have the ability to block all emotional connection to what they had to do, they were ordered to do. Go over there and kill the natives. These people have been for some reason able to block all connections to their actions and all emotional connection to their actions. So when they come back, they are even more hungry than ever for fame and fortune and winning, because they have blocked all kind of emotional windows. In, they haven't opened any emotional windows towards their actions in that the land that they were conquering. So those who keep the window open come back broken and usually never fixed. One should worry about their state of mind and suicide. And those who do come back and seem to be just fine, don't have to be on the suicide watch, they go back to France and they become even hungrier for success and a wolf type of mentality that yes, we did the right thing, we kill every one of those motherfuckers, we need to go kill more. And these guys are usually the guys who end up in politics. Not, usually, you know, there are exceptions. There's John Kerry that went into politics, but he was one of the guys that no more, please stop the bullshit. Nobody needs saving. But most of the time you get John McCain, sort of like a guy who has done a lot of, you know, a guy who, part of his military record, he caused a lot of suffering, and he was proud of it. Although the suffering didn't actually matter much, because Vietnam, before Vietnam War and after Vietnam War, was the same. So the Vietnam War really didn't need to happen. You see what I'm saying? These populations, these tribes, these countries are going to the direction that they are going within their social, historical construct, cultural construct. Your disruption from the outside cannot be justified under any condition, whether it's we are intervening because of economic reason, political reason, we are intervening because we are for freedom. No, no. The whole thing is bullshit. Whenever they are at that level of change in their social condition, they will change slowly over time. Imposing your social conditioning onto them, for example, in terms of gays and transgenders, imposing even your own, villages and small towns don't accept your, social norms of the cities. I mean, do you understand that this imposing of your own norms on other people is stupid? But then again, the people feel their elections are stolen, because no matter who they put in the office, not only their economic welfare doesn't get any better, but also they're being pushed these social norms that may be norms in the cities, but they're certainly not the norms in the small towns and the villages. So they're upset. Not only you're pushing your, this is the audacity. Not only you have been pushing the city norms, the norms of the city, like New York City, the norms, the social norms and cultural norms and economic norms that is present in New York City. Not only you're pushing it in Baghdad, but also you're pushing it in Chattanooga. They will get there when they get there. This idea of we have the right to push our own norms, city norms, into small villages and foreign countries. And if they don't accept those norms, we are going to go to war with them. One of those norms is Zionism. It's normal for us to think that we have the right to somebody else's land. That's normal. Salute. Salute to normal people. If you look like us, act like us, have the same religion, have the same culture, have the same customs, you're normal. If you don't look like us, don't have the same culture, customs, language, understanding, LGBT rights, this rights, that rights, the other rights, if you don't do that, then you're not normal. We're going to bring our military in and make you normal. Sure, why not? Again, I could be wrong about all of this. I like to mention, for my welfare, I like to mention that I could be wrong about all of this, but you should think about it. It shouldn't be wrong to ask that maybe they consider it as stolen election because they haven't seen any change in policy. They have only seen change in people, and they're not going to see any change in policy if Trump is elected or Harris. I think they will see a change in policy if Kennedy is elected, especially because his part of brain that the worm ate is missing. That part is it was the bad part. The worm ate it. Now Kennedy is the kind of guy that I have a feeling doesn't mind standing up to any motherfucker. So he's the guy who may be inclined to break up those big corporations to little bit small pieces because he understands in a intellectual level. I have a feeling he understands that the problem is the big corporations, which neither Trump nor Harris understand. Because the big corporations are feeding the bureaucratic class and the political class. The big corporations are paying the most of the taxes. So, they're financing a lot of the government. Supposedly. That's beside the printing press. Beside the printing press. Beside that, supposedly the corporations, these profit-making individuals, pay all of the taxes. So of course they want to have all the say because they're paying all the taxes. But the problem is what they say is usually for their own benefit. It's not for the benefit of the community because the guy who becomes a billionaire is not the guy who's really community minded. You gotta be a little, motherfucker to find your way to the top. You can't, you can't be a nice guy. Are you kidding me? No, the nice guys don't make it to the top. I can assure you of that. The system was not this capitalist system is it's not based on being nice. It's based on being profitable. Period. So being profitable sometimes means being an asshole, not being a nice guy. So you have these guys at the top of the heap. They're funding the politicians. People keep voting for a different party and a different president, but this shit keeps going down the hill. And you want them not to say stolen election, not to storm the Capitol? They storm the Capitol Hill. They say, what is going on here? We keep voting for the change, but you know, every generation has less cash, purchasing power, percentage of the social productivity, percentage of economic productivity, percentage of the GDP. Every generation has less of that percentage of GDP, and more of that GDP, more of that added productivity goes into the pockets of fewer and fewer people. That he can understand. That's he's protesting. That's what brings him to say, okay, it seems my election is being stolen. It seems I had the chicken, it wasn't good. Next time I came in, I ordered the beef, I still got the chicken, it wasn't good. Again, I think the next time I ordered the lamb, it came out the chicken, it wasn't good. Now I'm ordering the pork. I want the pork. The disruptor. And they're all pissed off. Many of them are pissed off. Because their situation hasn't changed and it's not going to change with Harris or it's not going to change with Trump. It's going to change with probably Kennedy, if it's going to change. But I don't see a chance of that because, everybody is on Kennedy's case to make sure Kennedy gets as little vote as possible. And he's the real disruptor. It's unfortunate. It seems every time we have to go down the same path of fascism or communism. You can keep capitalism and freedom as is if you can, you know, pick a disruptor such as Kennedy, who's not scared of many people that he should be scared of because he's missing part of the brain, and he will pull the cord and break up these corporations. But I don't see Trump doing it. He's the one. He owns one of those big corporations. I don't think Trump doing it, and I don't see Harris doing it because she's basically a civil servant. Kennedy will do it, but they won't let him.